sold like an animal. The room was dark and smelled like smoke, sweat, and fear. Loud voices filled the air, shouting numbers, laughing, calling. Bright lights shone down on a metal stage. On that stage stood cages, small, tight, and cold. Inside the cages were beings from many planets. Some had wings, some had tails, and some looked almost human. In one of the cages sat a girl, silent and still. Her skin was pale blue, her eyes large and silver. She had soft white markings on her face, like lines of light. She wore a torn cloth, barely covering her thin body. She didn't cry, didn't speak, didn't fight. She just sat, staring at the floor, waiting. A voice on the speaker shouted, "Next item, pleasure pet. Rare species, female, healthy, fresh." The crowd moved closer, eyes hungry. People, mostly humans, whispered to each other. "Look at her eyes," one said. "She's from the Leora species, right? I thought they were extinct." "No, just expensive," another man said, laughing. "Only the rich can buy them." The cage door opened with a loud click. Guards pulled the girl out roughly. She didn't resist, just walked slowly onto the stage. Chains hung from her wrists and ankles. The crowd cheered, some took pictures. Others started bidding. At the back of the room stood a man. Tall, quiet, face half hidden under a hood. He wore a black coat, boots covered in dust. A scar ran across his jaw, old but deep. He watched the girl with cold, calm eyes. The bidding started, fast and loud. 10,000 credits, 12,000, 15, 20. Then a deep voice said, 30,000. The crowd went silent. Heads turned. It was the hooded man, standing still, arms crossed. No one raised the bid again. The auctioneer smiled. Sold. Guards pulled the girl toward the man, handed him a tablet to sign. He pressed his thumb on it, eyes never leaving the girl. She looked up at him for the first time, expecting cruelty, pain, or worse. But he said nothing, just took off his coat and placed it over her shoulders. Then he whispered, "You're safe now." The girl didn't believe him. She had heard lies before. She had seen monsters smile, so she walked beside him, quiet and careful. They left the building, stepped into the cold night. The man led her to a small ship parked nearby. It wasn't fancy, but it was clean. He opened the door, let her walk in first. Inside was warm, filled with soft light and quiet machines. He showed her a small room with a bed, a blanket, and a glass of water. She stood in the corner, unsure what to do. He said, "This is your space. You can rest here." Still, she didn't move. He didn't push her, just said, "I'll be in the cockpit if you need anything," and left. She sat on the bed slowly, touched the blanket. It was soft. Too soft it didn't feel real. Hours passed, maybe more. She didn't sleep, just waited for pain, commands, chains. But they didn't come. The man stayed away, didn't touch her, didn't lock the door. She got up and walked around the small room. There were books on a shelf, real paper books. One had pictures of stars, planets, and ships. Another had drawings of animals. She opened it and saw a drawing of a cat, soft, small, kind eyes. She looked in the mirror across the room. She didn't look like the cat, but maybe, just maybe, she didn't look like a monster either. The door opened, and the man stood there. He held a tray of food, simple but warm. He placed it on the table and said, "Eat if you're hungry." Then he left again. She waited 5 minutes before touching the food. Tasted it slowly. It wasn't poisoned, it wasn't drugged. It was just food. And it made her cry, not loud, not with sound, just tears falling down her face, because kindness was more painful than pain. Later that night, she lay down on the bed. The lights turned off gently. In the darkness, she whispered her name, Sarai, just to remind herself she still had one. And in the other room, the man sat alone, looking at a photo of a young girl. Maybe his daughter, he whispered to himself. Not again. The ship moved into the stars, carrying one man and one girl. Two strangers with broken pasts, but maybe, just maybe, their future was something new. Asterisk. The ship flew through empty space. Stars passed like slow rain on the windows. Inside, everything was quiet. Too quiet. Sarai sat in the corner of her new room, still wearing the man's coat. It was heavy, but warm. It smelled like metal, fuel, and something she couldn't name. Not fear, not blood. Something soft. She hadn't spoken since the night of the auction. The man hadn't forced her. He didn't ask questions. He didn't ask for anything. He just flew the ship, day and night. Sometimes she heard him walking. Sometimes he talked to the ship's eye. But he never came into her room unless it was to leave food. Always warm, always fresh. One morning the door opened again, but instead of food, he placed a small machine on the table, a translator box, old tech, but still worked. He looked at her and said, "If you ever want to talk." Then he left again. Sarai stared at the box for hours. It hummed softly, waiting. She touched it once, then pulled her hand back. Not yet. That night, she crept out of her room, walked barefoot down the hall. The ship felt alive, small vibrations under her feet. Like a sleeping beast, she peeked into the cockpit. The man was asleep in the pilot's chair. One hand holding the photo. She couldn't see it clearly, but it looked like a child, maybe human, maybe not. She stepped closer. The floor creaked. His eyes opened instantly, but he didn't move. Didn't shout, just said, "Can't sleep?" She froze. He pointed to the chair across from him. "You can sit." She moved slowly, sat down without a word, for a while. They just watched the stars. The silence felt heavy, but not cruel, not like a cage. More like a question. He looked at her. "You have a name?" She said nothing. "Mine's Kale," he added. "Used to be in the military." She didn't know what that meant. But the word "used to be" made her curious. If he used to fight, why didn't he fight her? Why didn't he chain her, like the others? After a few minutes, he stood up, reached into a cabinet, and pulled out a blanket. Not for her, for himself. He laid down on the floor of the cockpit and said, "You can take the chair if you want," then closed his eyes again. That night, for the first time in months, Sarai slept, right there in the chair, wrapped in silence, not fear. The next day, she explored the ship. It wasn't big, but it was full of small things. A plant growing in a glass tube, a wall covered in stars, hand-drawn with white ink, a cracked mug that said, "Don't panic." She didn't know what it meant, but she liked it. In one room, she found broken machines, a small repair lab. She picked up a damaged drone and turned it in her hands. Something inside her mind clicked. Her fingers moved without thinking. Wire, fuse, reset, done. The drone blinked to life. Hovering gently, Kale walked in and froze. "You fixed that?" She nodded slowly. He smiled, just a little. "You're full of surprises." That night, she picked up the translator box, held it in both hands, pressed the button. It beeped. Ready. She took a deep breath and spoke. "My name is Sarai." The box repeated her voice in clear English. Kale looked up from across the room. His face didn't change much, but something in his eyes did. Like a door opening, slowly. "Sarai," he said. "That's a good name." She stared at him, unsure, then asked, "Why did you buy me?" Kale looked away, didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Because you were in a cage." "That's not a reason," she said. He shrugged. "Maybe not, but it was enough." She didn't understand him, but she wanted to. Outside the window, stars burned quietly. Sarai watched them. And for the first time in her life, she wondered what else was out there, not as a pet, not as a prisoner, but as someone who could choose where to go. She whispered one word to herself. Not her name, not his, just one small word. Freedom. Kale didn't hear it, but somehow he felt it. She speaks. Kale was working on the ship's engine. It was old, heavy, and loud. Wires sparked like angry snakes. Oil dripped slowly into a bucket. He muttered under his breath, "Come on, just hold together." He didn't hear her enter the room. Didn't see her standing there, watching. Sarai's eyes weren't afraid now. They were curious, focused, alive. She stepped closer and pointed at a connector. "That wire is wrong," she said. Kale jerked his head up, dropped the wrench, stared at her like he'd seen a ghost. You talked," he said. Sarai nodded. Translator box, she said simply. It helps. She knelt beside the engine, pulled the wire, reconnected it. The lights above them flickered and turned green. The engine hummed like it was purring. Cale blinked. Okay, he said. That was impressive. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. Your ship is falling apart, she added. Cale shrugged. Like me, he said, with a dry laugh. Sarai looked at him. You're not broken, she said, just rusted. He laughed harder. It was the first time he laughed without pain in his eyes. Later, in the main room, Cale made tea. He handed her a cup and said, I still don't know why you trust me. Sarai didn't answer right away. She touched the edge of the cup, watching the steam rise. Then she said, because you didn't name me. Cale looked confused. What do you mean? At the market, she said. They gave me numbers, not names. You didn't. Silence filled the room like a soft blanket. Cale sipped his tea. Sarai looked at the stars outside. And then she said something strange. I remember stars. Cale raised an eyebrow. You've traveled before? No, she said. I was stars. He didn't understand. But he didn't interrupt. Sarai closed her eyes. There was light, she whispered. Before the cages. Before the chains. I could feel machines, feel energy. My people. We talked through light. Not words, not sound. Cale leaned forward. Your species is supposed to be non-sentient, he said. That's what they told us. They lied, she said. Her voice was calm, not angry, like someone stating a fact too old to argue. She stood up, walked to a wall panel, touched it gently. The lights flickered, shifted, dimmed. Cale stood too, eyes wide. You're interfacing, he said, with the ship. No wires, no code, just thought. Sarai looked at him. My people were not animals. They made machines with their minds, built ships that sang with us, Cale whispered. Biosynthetics. It was a myth, she tilted her head. Your kind turned our truth into myth, because it was easier to sell us that way. A long silence. Cale walked toward her slowly. I didn't know, he said. She nodded. I believe you. Then, she whispered something in her native language. A soft sound like wind touching glass. The lights turned blue. The ship's eye spoke for the first time in days. Welcome back, Sarai. Cale stepped back, stunned. You just unlocked the ship's original protocol. This is a military vessel, but now it's listening to you. Sarai looked sad. Not proud. They used our tech to build war machines, then killed the ones who remembered how it worked. Cale sat down. Slow, careful. What are you really, Sarai? She looked him in the eyes. I'm not sure yet, she said. But I think I used to be something more. Cale nodded slowly. And what do you want now? Sarai didn't hesitate. I want to go home. Not just to see it, she added. To free it. Outside, the stars no longer looked so quiet. They looked like witnesses, like eyes waiting for the truth to return. Cale stood up. Then we'll go, he said. I don't know how, but I'll help. Sarai looked at him. This time she smiled. Just a little. And in that moment, she looked more human than ever, and more alien than any species he had ever known. Asterisk wife. Not slave. The station was floating above a dead moon. It wasn't on any map, not legal, not clean. But it had what Cale needed. Papers, fake IDs, forged records, and people who didn't ask questions. They walked through the docking bay together. Cale and Sarai side by side. She wore a hood, her face hidden. But her posture had changed. She didn't walk like prey anymore. She walked like someone with a plan. Inside the building, the walls were metal, the lights flickering. A man behind a dirty desk looked up and frowned. Cale? He said, didn't think you were still breathing. Barely, Cale replied. The man pointed to Sarai. What's this? Cale's jaw tightened. She's with me, the man laughed. Yeah, I can see that, he said with a smirk. Cale didn't laugh. I need identity papers, full citizen profile, the man whistled. For her? You sure? She ain't even human. She's mine, Cale said, voice cold. The room went quiet. The man leaned back, shrugged. All right, your money, your mess. He started typing. Species? Kale answered. Unknown? Name? Sarai stepped forward and said it herself. Sarai, the man raised an eyebrow. She speaks? Kale didn't answer. The man kept typing. Status, pet, servant, cargo, or personal property. Kale stayed silent, his hands clenched. The man looked up. Look, you can't list her as free, not for her kind. Law says she's an object, not a person. Kale asked. What if I want her protected? The man leaned in. Only way to lock her ID and stop a scan is to mark her as family. Kale frowned. Family? The man shrugged. Wife, technically. It's a loophole. Marry her. And legally, no one can touch her. Sarai looked at Kale. Her face unreadable. Kale didn't look at her. He just stared at the screen and said, Do it. They stood in a cold metal hallway, the fake marriage form still glowing on the tablet. Sarai held it in her hands. It said her name, his name, and a lie. A useful lie, but still a lie. You didn't ask me, she said softly. Kale turned to her. No, he said. I didn't. She looked him in the eyes. Do you think I'm yours now? No, he said. I think now you're untouchable. That's all. She stared at the tablet again. Wife, she repeated. The word tasted strange. Sweet and sour at the same time. Are all your people like this? She asked. Kale raised an eyebrow. Like what? Always pretending freedom is paperwork. He had no answer. She handed the tablet back. You did it for me, she said. But next time ask. Back on the ship, things felt different. Nothing had changed, and everything had. She had a new ID, a new name, and a title, but not a voice in the world that made it real. Kale was quieter now, more careful. He still brought her food, still gave her space, but he avoided her eyes like he was ashamed. She didn't want his shame. She wanted his truth. One night, she walked into the cockpit. He was staring at the stars again, like he was trying to disappear into them. She sat beside him, close this time, close enough to hear his breath change. Why did you really do it? She asked. Cal didn't answer, not right away. Then he said, Because I've failed before. She waited. He continued, There was a girl years ago, another war, another planet. I left her behind, didn't fight hard enough. She died in the cage. Sarai listened. Not with pity, with understanding. I don't want to own you, he said. I just didn't want to lose you. She reached out and touched his hand. Her fingers were cold, his were shaking. I am not lost, she said. Not anymore. They sat like that in silence. Two people tied together by things they didn't ask for, but maybe needed anyway. Outside, the ship drifted forward. Toward Sarai's home, whatever was left of it. Toward danger. Toward a world that still thought she was property. But now she had a name, a voice, and someone standing beside her, not her master, not her owner. Just someone who chose to walk with her, even if the galaxy said no. Her mind, her power, the ship was silent, too silent. Kale had seen silence before. In war, it meant something was waiting. In space, it meant something was broken. But this silence was different. It came from Sarai. She had stopped talking, not out of fear, but focus. She spent hours in the engine room. Wires spread across the floor like vines. Panels open, systems humming. She moved through it like it was alive, like it was part of her. Kale watched from the doorway. He didn't understand what she was doing, but the ship was running smoother, faster, quieter, like it was happy one night. She pulled a black cable from the wall, held it in her hands like a living thing, and whispered something in a language he didn't know. The lights dimmed, then pulsed blue. The walls shivered, just once. Sarai, Kale said quietly. What are you? She looked up at him, eyes glowing faintly silver. I don't know, she answered, but I think I'm starting to remember. Later, Kale ran a scan. He wasn't spying, not exactly. He just wanted to understand. The computer showed something strange. Her neural patterns didn't match any known species, not alien, not synthetic. Something in between. He checked her DNA next and paused. Her genetic code was layered, like it was hiding something. Bioreactive, adaptive, a weapon, maybe, or a key. The next day, Sarai came to the cockpit. "Your ship speaks to me," she said. "Not in words. In shapes and light." Kale leaned forward. "You're not just reading code. You're feeling it." She nodded. "My people used to bond with machines. Our cities were alive. Our ships were family." Kale had no words. He'd heard stories about ancient tech, ghost ships, cities lost in time, but he never believed them. "Until now, where did you learn all this?" he asked. "I didn't," she said. "I was born with it." Sarai held out her hand. A small piece of metal floated above her palm. No wires, no magnet, just her mind. Kale stood, slowly. "That's not tech," he said. "That's control," Sarai whispered. "I think that's why they erased us. We weren't just alive. We were dangerous." A red light flashed. "Warning signal." Kale moved to the controls. "Someone's tracking us," he said. "Fast ship, minimal ID." Sarai didn't flinch. She stepped forward. "Let me try something." She placed both hands on the console, closed her eyes. The ship's lights turned blue again, then purple, then gold. The engine stopped for 2 seconds, dead silent, then roared back to life, twice as fast, twice as smooth. Kale stared at the speed meter. "You just rewrote the propulsion system." Mid-flight, Sarai opened her eyes. "They won't catch us now." But it wasn't over. The enemy ship fired one sharp burst. The hull shook, shields held, barely. Kale ran to weapons control. "Can you fight?" he asked her. Sarai didn't answer. She walked to the center of the ship, sat down on the metal floor, and began to hum. The hum grew louder, more complex. Lights danced on the walls. The ship's I voice came back online, louder than ever. "New command accepted," it said. "Emergency defense protocol unlocked." Turrets emerged from the ship's sides. Fired back. Precise, brutal, clean. The enemy ship spun out and vanished into darkness. Kale was frozen, his hands still on the controls. "Unused, you took over," he whispered. Sarai opened her eyes. "No," she said. "I woke it up. After the fight, they sat in the dark. No more alarms, no more chasing, just the stars and silence." "You're not just rare," Kale said. "You're extinct, or supposed to be." Sarai nodded. "They didn't just conquer us," she said. "They feared us, so they erased us." Kale leaned back. "If anyone finds out what you are, they'll hunt me," she finished. Kale nodded. "And probably kill me too," he added. She looked at him. "Still want to help?" He didn't answer, just stood up and walked to the controls. "Set course," he said. "To your homeworld." Sarai smiled, not because she felt safe, but because she finally felt real. Asterisk hunted. The signal came at 0400, sharp-coded, deadly, a military ping. Short range, tight band. Someone knew exactly where they were. Kale saw it first. Contact, no ID, high speed. He didn't ask who. He already knew. Sarai stood behind him, silent, her eyes already glowing. "They found me," she said. "No," Kale said. "They came for you." He hit the engines. The ship jumped forward, slicing through space like a knife. But the other ship followed. Faster than they should be. Inside the enemy vessel, 6 figures waited. No faces, no names, just armor and orders. "They want her alive," the leader said. "Anything else, burn it." Back on Kale's ship. Alarms screamed. Sarai closed her eyes, felt the ship around her, the wires, the engines, the AI. "Let me fly it," she said. Kale hesitated, then moved aside. She didn't touch the controls. She didn't need to. The ship felt her thoughts, responded to her will. It spun. Dove. Rolled through asteroid fields like it was dancing. Kale held on as the stars twisted. "What are you doing?" he shouted. "Flying like they never taught you," she said. But the other ship wasn't stopping. It launched a hook, magnetic, hot, fast, latched onto the side of their hull. The ship jerked, pulled hard. "They're boarding," Kale said. Sarai stood, eyes hard. "No," she said. "I'm letting them in." "What?" "They want a hunt," she said. "Let's show them a real one." The hatch opened with a hiss. Smoke filled the hall. Boots hit the floor. Sharp. Heavy. Trained. The first soldier aimed forward. Didn't even blink. "Target acquired," he said. But Sarai was already moving. She stepped out from the shadows, hands empty. No weapon, no armor, just her. He fired. The bullet froze in mid-air. Hung there, spinning slowly, like time forgot it. She turned her hand. The bullet fell. Then she said, "You shouldn't have come." The lights flickered. The floor shook. The walls came alive. Panels opened. Wires grabbed ankles. A door slammed behind them, ceiling shut. One screamed. Another fired in panic. But the ship was hers now. It listened to her like a child listens to its mother. Cale watched from the control room, face pale. "Sarai," he whispered. He didn't know if he should be amazed or afraid. Inside the hall, Siri stepped forward. The soldiers backed away, tough men, trained killers. Now frozen, one tried to speak. "You're a weapon," he said. Sarai shook her head. "No," she said. "I'm the warning you didn't hear." She raised one hand. A pulse of energy surged through the ship. Not fire, not light. Memory. The soldiers fell to their knees, clutching their heads. Images flooded their minds. Cities burned. Children in cages. Machines ripping lives apart. It wasn't pain. It was truth, and it broke them. Minutes later, Cale walked in. The soldiers were unconscious. Sarai stood over them, breathing hard. Her eyes dimmed, but not empty. "I didn't kill them," she said. "I could have." Cale nodded. "I know." She turned to him. "Do you still want to help me?" Cale stepped closer. "I want to follow you," he said. "You don't need saving anymore." She looked at the men on the floor. "The galaxy thinks I'm a pet," she said. "An object. They're wrong." Cale asked, "What now?" She touched the ship's wall. It glowed under her hand. "We go to my planet," she said. "It's time to wake the rest." Outside, the stars seemed to shift, like they'd been watching, waiting. Now they were listening. The ship turned, left the broken soldiers floating in silence, and vanished into the dark. Sarai didn't look back. She didn't need to. For the first time, she wasn't just running from something. She was running toward it. Revolution. The ship came out of warp like a whisper. No noise, no fire, just presence. Sarai stood at the front window. Her homeworld floating in the dark. It was beautiful and broken. A planet with veins of gold across its surface. Cities built into cliffs, skyports like ancient temples. But from orbit, the truth showed itself. Half the world was in chains. Orbiting ships flew patrol routes. Factories pumped smoke into the sky. Her people, what was left of them, moved in lines. Not streets, like parts of a system. Like gears, not lives. Cale stood beside her. He said nothing. He didn't have to. They landed on the dark side of the world, old ruins, untouched. The scanners showed no life, but Sarai knew better. "This place," she said, "was our voice." Cale looked around. "It's quiet now," she nodded. "That's why I'm here." They entered the ruin. Walls covered in glowing stone, markings in a forgotten language. But Sarai remembered, not in her head, in her blood. She placed her hand on the center panel. It lit up. The floor shook and the air began to sing, a low, humming sound, mechanical but alive. A deep voice echoed through the chamber. "Identification," Sarai answered in her native tongue. A language Cale couldn't understand. But he felt it, in his chest, in his bones. Like something ancient was listening. The ground opened. A platform rose from beneath. Inside, a core, glowing with blue fire, a forgotten AI, sealed for centuries. Purpose? It asked. Sarai stepped forward. "To wake the network," she said. "To free my people." "Authorization confirmed," the AI replied. And across the planet, something stirred in the slave cities. Machines paused, lights flickered. Broadcast screens turned black. Then one by one, they lit up with Sarai's face. She stood in the center of the frame. No weapons, no throne, just truth. "My name is Sarai," she said. "I was born free, but they told you I was property. They told you I couldn't think. They lied. All across the planet, people stopped to watch. Workers froze. Guards lowered weapons. I am one of many, she continued. We were not weak, we were silenced, but today, I speak, not just for myself, for all of us. Kale stood behind the camera, watching her, proud and small, because this was bigger than him. Bigger than any war he'd ever fought. The ground trembled. Ships in orbit began to shift, some powered down. The network Sarai reactivated had old commands inside it. Failsafes, codes only her people could trigger. One by one, the slave system shut down. Security bots powered off, walls unlocked. The revolution didn't start with fire. It started with access, freedom by design. The ruling government tried to respond. Sent messages, ships, warnings, but it was too late. The system no longer listened to them. It listened to her, later. Sarai and Kale stood on a high cliff, watching the cities come back to life. Lights turned gold again, not red. Not blue, gold like memory, like home. You did it, Kale said. Sarai shook her head. No, she said. I remembered. They forgot, Kale asked. What now? Sarai looked at the sky. There are more worlds like this, she said. More lies to break. Will they follow you? He asked. They don't have to, she said. I'll walk first. In orbit, the last enemy ship turned and left. Not destroyed, not attacked, just dismissed, irrelevant now. Before they left the ruins, Sarai walked back to the core, whispered a final command. Wake them all, she said. Every node, every city, every voice. The II responded. Confirmed. The revolution had begun. Not with blood, but with a girl they tried to sell. And a human who chose not to own her.